Hi, everyone. We are back. I'm here with Veronica Archer, and I can't wait to share with you a little bit about her. We were just saying a little prayer when we got on to the spirit of the summit, and it's so amazing because this summit spirit has been co-created with the speakers and everybody involved, and it's just such a beautiful experience. So welcome, Veronica. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I love these topics, and I'm so honored to be a part of your summit.
Thank you. I want to read about you a little bit so everyone can get a sense of who you are before we dive in. And I want to tell you all that Veronica Archer is an intuitive transformation coach. And she's a healer. She's a healer. She supports legacy makers, which, yeah, if you're listening to this, you're probably a legacy maker. She supports legacy makers in experiencing joy, love, and vibrancy of their life. Her transformation path began when she left a marriage of 16 years, finding herself completely shut down and riddled with chronic pain and migraines and fibromyalgia. After experiencing joy and wellness, she now guides others through a combination of intuitive guidance, quantum healing, and transformative coaching to be free from their painful patterns, live a life in alignment with their soul purpose, and consistently experience joy and peace in their life. Veronica believes that everyone deserves to rediscover the lust for life. And you know what I want to put in there? The lust for a life of legacy. The lust for a life of legacy and natural sense of ease and joy we're all born with and we all have access to. Yes, so that you can effortlessly create your legacy. I love it. We're all about creating here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So amazing to have you
here. Thank you so much, Emilia. I do want to just clarify one thing, if you don't mind. So I typically don't call myself a healer. And that's because I feel that my role, not that we're not healers, we are, but I feel that the role that really calls to me is that I am a guide for you to find your healer within yourself.
Yes.
You are your own best healer. I can't do anything to you or for you that's going to heal you.
No.
But I am here to guide you to find your own healing.
Absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. That's a much more precise description of that, I think. And I always say, like, nobody can do it for you. Like, I wish I could just have somebody that would like lose weight for me, but like, you can. I have to do it. I have to do the healthy eating and all that, right? So it's kind of like, I think this idea of the healing, and you can't really, like, no one can heal it for you.
Yeah.
There is still inner work and inner learning to be done. So thank you for that clarification. I love the, the integrity, because words are important. Like, there's an integrity of that path versus the other path where, we're talking about, oh, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to, do a spell on you or whatever, right? Which is not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So Veronica, before we got on, we were just catching up and having these incredible conversations. And the first thing I want to bring us back to and share with our audience in the themes of sacred partnership and these themes I had of passion, power, and partnership. And we were talking about this amazing experience that you had with this male healer guide. I'll call him a healing guide.
I love it.
A healing guide. Yeah. So this healing guide, and what you and I got excited about is your story about how you had this experience of sacred partnership with him. And so I wanted to share that with our listeners because I wanted to illustrate and have Veronica jump on and share these amazing experiences that, you can have sacred partnership with men outside of marriage, right? The point is like, okay, if we're going to be married, we would like to definitely have one there for sure. Like, that's the foundation of everything. But we can create those experiences with the divine masculine in men at work and in our healing endeavors and everything else. So would you tell us more about that? Because I really want to hear that. I think that was a really beautiful story and how you described your experience with him.
I'd love to share that. Thank you. Yeah, and so in deep honor to Lou Corletto is the healing guide that I worked with, and I shared with you, Emilia, that I had gone through probably one of the most difficult periods of my life at the end of 2022 that resulted in, which for your listeners, I was in a marriage to a narcissistic person. I had trauma from my childhood, so it was pretty surprising to me, especially as a transformation coach, to be like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this really difficult situation, and resulted in a lot of emotional pain, and that showed up in some very significant physical symptoms. And so I decided to invest in myself, because while we have to heal ourselves, we often also need support. So knowing when to reach out for support. And so I reached out to this healing guide, Lou Corletto, and we worked together for 5 days, one-on-one, and resulted in this amazing healing and transformation. And what I shared with Emilia was that I really believe now, and even when I was in the process, that someone like him is really the only person that could have supported this particular healing and transformation that I went through. And that was because the pain was all about my heart and the feminine and motherhood and the lack of love that I received as a child. All these very, I'll say, feminine experiences really embedded deep in like womanhood, which I didn't recognize, by the way, until I was going through the process. And this healing guide is what you would like if you were to paint a picture of the embodied masculine, just like both his physicality, he's like sturdy and physically strong, emotionally strong, grounded, embodied. And he's just like, here, I'm going to hold this container for you. And your feminine can do whatever it needs to do. You can scream, you can cry, you can and the container was so strong. And while I have experienced healing with women, and I love my women's circle and they support me in such amazing ways, the depth of this transformation, I believe, could only happen with an embodied masculine presence.
Yes.
And that was, I think, Emilia, what you described as the sacred partnership with him, right? Wasn't romantic, wasn't nothing. It was he held the container. And that's what a sacred partner does.
Yes. I just got full body chills. I got full body chills because for those of you women that are listening to this and you're feminine leaders and you have a mission and you have a vision and you have a purpose, I mean, why wouldn't you enlist? I don't know if that's really the right word, but like this, like I know you do. I know everyone thinks about love and sacred partnership. And if you're a spiritual person, the sacred partnership piece is like the highest possibility of that, right? That's like what Veronica just described in this experience, like can be your experience of marriage.
Yeah. So that gave me chills. And can you imagine if you have that container all the time, in the sense available to you? Let's not make our men responsible for everything in our lives. Right? But yeah.
Well, that safety, that trust, that sense of he's got me, that sense of I don't need to caretake him or mother him or worry about if he's okay. I get to be supported, right? Like all these things that I know women dream about with their divine masculine partner, like that's the partnership I think that us spiritual women dream about and want to know how to create. So that's what this summit is about. So I love that this concept of calling that in. And yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Emilia, there was another aspect that I wanted to share, which is
yes, please.
After I left and was sort of integrating everything, that realization, which I knew in my head but landed in my body, is the polarity, right?
Yes.
You can't have a magnet that's only positive or only negative, right? It works together. And the realization that I have, like, as I mentioned, I have quite a few beautiful women in my life. I have some beautiful men in my life that we may talk about also. what I realized, what I felt was how much more I as a person could be if I had a masculine partner that I could interact with in that way on a regular basis, and how that really is missing in quite a bit of my life. And so
Yes.
yeah, we can be so much more as people when we are partnered with that polarity that keeps us grounded and keeps us evolving.
Yes, yes. And speaking of the polarity, I want to say when we have that polarity and we honor it, and like, not that it's always going to be perfect, we're going to jump off and the poles are going to switch, and it's okay. In today's couples, in our world that we live in, that's normal and to be expected. But as long as you know how to swap back in the polarities that are nourishing to both of you, because he's the masculine, you're the feminine, then you've got what you need for a prolonged relationship, because it's going to be sustainable, because it works. There's nothing about it that's not working, right? Like this experience here, he was his masculine, you were your feminine. It worked, right? That works. Like you said, the magnet, that works. Exactly. And then the next piece I want to talk about and bring it in, because I feel like then you're creating that foundation for not just the nourishing long-term support with those energies that you described so beautifully, but also like sustainable passion. And I just wonder what your thoughts are on this, because I know we talked about you leaving that 16-year long marriage, and I'm wondering, was there an experience of like not being in your power, not having passion, not having passion, not having power because the polarity wasn't there? Like how did that affect you?
Yes, such a good question. And like several layers came through as you were talking, so I hope I remember each of them. So this may be a long answer, but feel free to pull out more. So I want to start first with the concept. So there's polarity, but this foundation of it works and it's sustainable for long-term passion, right?
Yeah.
So my background prior to this work was in biology and ecology. So I'm always looking to nature to kind of understand how things work. And what I observe is that everything is a cycle. I mean, we learn it in biology, it's not my concept. Right? There's the food cycle, there's the respiratory cycle, like everything is a cycle. And what's important about a cycle is that there's input and output, right? So the multiple parts are all doing their part and giving and receiving and everything, right?
Yes, and energy is flowing.
Yeah. And when that's happening, everything is in balance. So it's sustainable and it creates it just naturally. Yes. Right? So that's like when you have that balance in your relationship, of course it's sustainable. And of course there's long-term passion. There may be ups and downs, right? Yes. But when both of you are in balance with yourselves and with each other, it can't, I don't know, can you hear that? My cat wants to be a part of this interview. She's scratching at my door.
Oh, is that what that was?
I want to be part of this conversation.
I didn't know what it was, but I don't hear it now.
Okay. So when you're in balance when both partners are in balance with themselves and you're in balance with each other, it's going to result in creation, right? Creation. So, I'm sorry, Emilia, can I open my door? Because that is so distracting for me.
Yeah, of course. The kitty wants to be part of the conversation. She's got things to say. I've got two kitties right here. I've got my Peach. His name is Peach because he's peach colored. And then we call him Bazil. He's over there. He's like this on the couch.
Aw, mine's Rosie. She's black with white feet and white chest. She's really cute. Aww. Okay.
So the creation, the energy flow.
Creating, right? So that's I believe why these relationships with the polarity balanced result in long-term passion. So you asked me about my marriage and the polarity there. So this is where I think healing, of course, my work is in healing, is so important to sacred union. Was there a lack of polarity? I would say no, there probably was polarity. There was quite a bit of passion in my marriage all the way to the end. However, the polarity was an imbalanced polarity. So I'm going to oversimplify this. I just got a big fat note because this is something that's a pet peeve of mine. My ex, I'm going to describe it and then I'll tell you why it's a pet peeve as well, because they're both important. So my ex probably would be described as narcissistic personality disorder. I was definitely I didn't realize it at the time because I was a successful, apparently confident, productive woman. I was definitely like in victim space. And so narcissists by nature are takers, victims by nature are givers. So in that sense, there was a polarity that brought us together, but it was imbalanced because I was giving, and it was going into a dark hole. So I became completely depleted, hence the migraines, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, all the things at the beginning, right? So I don't know if that answers your question. Like we can't.
Yes, I think it's so good, I feel like this is really important, Veronica, to talk about, because we've been touching on narcissism, and I always say it's the antithesis of the sacred union. And I love how you described it, because with the feminine being in the giving and the masculine being in the taking, the polarities are switched.
Inverted, right? Yeah.
It's inverted, exactly. And so that can't be long-term sustainable.
When something's inverted,
it's depleting. Exactly. The energy is not moving. The creation is not happening. It's actually a cycle of destruction.
The cycle of so it is working, but it's working as a cycle of destruction. A cycle of creation.
That's what I feel like. That's what I think you're telling me. That's what I'm hearing.
100%. That's what I'm telling you. And the reason I said I didn't want to frame it that way, so that's true from a polarity standpoint. One of my sort of pet peeves is the vilification of the narcissist.
Yes, I agree.
We have this story out there in the healing community of the evil narcissist who's attacking us and doing all these destructive things. Where did my transformation begin? My transformation truly began. Some building blocks were in place before, but when I had the moment of what is my role, as opposed to my ex is so evil and doing all these things to me.
Yeah. How am I participating in this?
How am I participating in everything in our life? We co-create with our energy and the energies around us. So if I'm experiencing a pattern over and over again, whether it's a pattern within my marriage or a pattern of multiple relationships, what is it within me that's causing me to subconsciously, most of the time, what's causing me to create this pattern? And so that's why I don't like to tap into that vilification of the narcissist. But from polarity standpoint, that is true. You know, a narcissist takes, an empath, a wounded empath gives,
and graciously gives, because we're just earning and deserving our keep.
Yeah.
Right. We're busy earning and deserving and compensating for our keep.
Yeah.
As
that's right.
Yeah.
So for your listeners, I think what's key is like if you are somebody, you said you mentioned narcissism throughout the summit. So if people listening are someone who's experienced that or have experienced those depleting, destructive relationships, right? How do I go from a destructive relationship to a creating relationship?
Yes.
It's the healing within yourself.
Yes, it's the healing within yourself, definitely, so that you can be in your personal power, because you have to bring that in to co-create. You can't be depleted of your power, because then there's no creation energy.
And you can't be a victim.
No, you can't. So that's the power piece, right? That's the personal power piece, is the healing. There's a polarity piece of the masculine and feminine poles and energies flowing, right? And then there's a passion piece, and the passion piece is that when those other two things work,
it's just there, right?
The passion is pretty much, you don't really have to work that hard for it, really. Yeah. And the thing I find really interesting about the passion piece is, you know, a lot of people say, oh, how do you keep this spark alive after 10 years of marriage or 20 years of marriage? And it's like, you know, Marcy Newman and I were having this conversation. People go outside of themselves, you know, like to the kink or to the BDSM or to this or to that. But like the passion is in that energy exchange and in that energy flow that you put it, like that cycle of creation, that cycle of energy flow, that is the passion. That's the energy moving. right?
And I think when people look at, I want to fix the passion, like you just said, so often we're looking for things to heal the symptom or to cure the symptom,
Yeah,
right? Like we're putting band-aids on it with all these different intimacy tools. However, like you just beautifully said, if you have the power and the power and the polarity, the passion comes. So rather than trying to fix the passion, what's the root cause? Where's the imbalance? Is the imbalance in the power? Is the imbalance in the polarity? Look at that and allow the passion to come rather than starting here. And to circle it back to kind of where we started is like, that was my experience too with these 5 days of healing, is that I was going to doctors and they were looking at the symptoms. Well, you have this symptom, let's address this, right? But what was the root cause? The root cause was some deep, pain transformation that needed to happen. When we got to the root cause, then the passion, my life force, my happiness, my joy came back.
yes.
I'm just like, I'm tired and I don't have energy. I don't have joy. What's wrong with me? And, trying to, okay, I'm going to do these things to get my joy back. But when I find the root cause and release it, the joy is just there.
It's just naturally there. It's just naturally there. Exactly. And so these three things, like they work together, right? Like one, you can't work in one and not affect the other two, but you need all three in a healthy place to be able to have a sacred partnership. And I love what we're talking about with you, Veronica, because I think as a healing guide and not a healer,
Thank you.
Your specialty is, I think what I hear you saying is that personal power.
Yes.
That ability to come home to who we are as a creator, who we are as a being of joy, who we are as a being that has peace, who we are as a person who has a lust for life,
100%.
lust for a legacy life. What did I call it? Lust for legacy life, right?
Yeah.
And so then if you can imagine that kind of person coming into a partnership, what are they going to mess up? Like, you know what I mean? Well, I can tell you what they're going to mess up. They could pick a feminine man.
That's right.
They pick a feminine man. That could be, so that's the other piece, right? We need to pick a masculine man if you have feminine core. But if you're masculine core, which there are women who are masculine core, then yeah, you would fit well with more of an effeminate man. But yeah, if you have your personal
you may have a neutral core, also, and then you kind of, yeah, there's so many different ways to look at that. One thing I do find interesting though is that as you do the inner healing and transformation, you may find what you thought your polarity was, you may find that it shifted. So as so many, Emilia, I know you talk about this, but as so many women, I was very much like in my masculine energy for most of my life, because when you're in trauma and all that, that's how we tend to respond. Plus, our world tells us that masculine is good, and there's all these different reasons.
Exactly.
Right? And when I didn't recognize that, of course, and when I did recognize that, and I started, my healing work and all those things, I eventually got to a place where I was like, I think my internal polarity is kind of 50-50. I think I do have a lot of masculine and I do have a lot of feminine, and I honor that, and that's okay. And now I've like deepened even further, and I'm like, no, what's actually been happening is that I have devalued my feminine for all kinds of reasons, right? And as I'm valuing my feminine, I'm like, oh no, I am a feminine. I mean, obviously I'm a feminine essence. I'm in a female body. I identify as a woman, right? I don't have the issue of like, my body doesn't feel right. That's not a thing for me. Of course I'm a feminine being, right? I love how excited you got. And even like 6 months ago, if I had picked a partner, I probably would have picked a man who was not in that masculine, because I still was attached to the masculine that was keeping my feminine down. And the more I do healing work, the more I deepen and the more I connect with my feminine, the more, the different kinds of partners I'm interested in. So the polarity can shift. Your
polarity does shift, absolutely, with the healing.
Yeah.
Took a lot of healing for me to come into my feminine also, but thank God, because before that I was in my masculine attracting feminine men. So of course that was the inversion. A lot of women go through this.
Yes.
especially women who are feminine leaders that are, you know, in creating what they're masculine. And I just want to say there's nothing wrong with being a leader and still having a masculine man. Like you can still be in your masculine and have a masculine man, you know. I think that's some of the things that people misconstrue.
Yeah, well, Amelia, that's something that I'm really passionate about right now as I've been kind of leaning into these understandings more, is our understanding of feminine energy and what does that mean? What is it? What is your internal feminine and the different aspects of the feminine? And our world has taught us that feminine is fragile, frail, a mother and nurturing, but is not, you know, intelligent or productive. That
Sacrificial.
Sacrificial. Motherhood is sacrificial, right? We need protection. And I just got all kinds of but when you really tap into feminine energy, like what is it? Like it is powerful, it is protection, it is provision. Look in nature, is mama bear gonna let her cubs starve?
Right.
She's providing for, right? But it's a different type of protection, and it's a different type of provision than the masculine brings. But understanding that there's women warriors, there've been women warriors through all, as long as there's been humankind, you know.
And I've read they're more fierce than the men were. That's right. That's what I thought. Yeah.
So understanding that so many women, when we are women leaders and we are often in our masculine because we're taught that that is how you lead. However, you can tap into your feminine and tap into those aspects, and you can lead as the feminine instead of leading as the masculine. Tap into the feminine power, the feminine protection, the feminine leadership, and own that and be a feminine leader.
Yes. And the feminine courage, which is about vulnerability and willing to say the obvious, right? Versus like more the masculine courage, which is like, you know, win, 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 right? That's Nothing wrong with that. I love to win too. Right?
I do too. Yeah.
But there's, you know, the feminine and the masculine flavors of courage. That's so amazing. Veronica, I want to also touch on another thing we said before, because I think it's going to be really important to our listeners, and it has to do with the gift that you have, this incredible gift, which is the father wound healing. That's going to be linked below. And I wanted to say, you know, we talked about this, but I think what we came to, and tell me if I'm on the right path with this, is how I interpreted it, was that we like, it's like all our issues from the masculine with the masculine energy. I mean, they inevitably at the core are a father wound, right?
100%. And honestly, it took me quite a bit of time to really understand and own that, because I myself, and I know others do, have a very deep mother wound. And I recognize that. And I spent a lot of time looking at that and integrating that, alchemizing that, so that it no longer impacted me so deeply. And funnily enough, I think aspects of my mother have shown up in my male partners, right? So my mother was very present in my life. However, and this is why I'm so excited to be able to offer this as a free gift, the father wound healing that I'm sharing, that I received from my mentor and I'm allowed to share with others, is what started me really, truly understanding these things that we just were talking about, how the father wound is showing up. And when I did this father wound healing and the other practices that are connected with it, that's when I really started shifting more into my feminine, more out of my masculine. I saw big changes with my money, with my own like embodiment. And it really started me on this path that led me to this embodied masculine healing guide that I worked with, right?
Amazing.
And healing the father wound was the starting point for this level of transformation that we've been talking about here today. So I'm super excited to offer that. It's a healing session that I guide that you can listen to and do on yourself. And then there's follow-up practices for integration, like meditations and not affirmations, but statements that you can make, decrees.
I like that word.
Yeah. So there's a few different things that you get with that.
I really like how you described it and the progression that you drew connected to this father wound healing, because what I'm hearing there, and I don't know if this is just my sacred partnership summit host brain going crazy or not, but what I'm hearing there's like heal the father wound, or at least become conscious and start working with that energy, right? You don't have to be perfect, right? But just aware and working changes money, changes a sense of purpose, a sense of being in our body. And what I heard in my head was like, and then it changes your relationships with men in the romantic realm.
100%, 1000%. Yeah. How can it not?
Because it would. How can it not? Exactly.
Yeah. And your relationships with men in general, and masculine energy in general. Right.
So that's going to be linked below. That's amazing, Veronica. I feel like we've said so many incredible things. I don't even really think we need to say anything else. I feel like this is, we've said it. This is it. This is the part of the work that needs to happen for feminine leaders who want to claim sacred partnership. Here it is. Thank you for bringing this forward. We needed it. We need to know this. We need to become aware of this and start expanding our consciousness in that direction. So it's going to be linked below, the father wound healing. Veronica, thank you so much. I love that you came. I love that you gave us this gift. I love that we had this incredible conversation, and thank you.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me and being able to contribute to this beautiful summit.
Thank you. So good to have you.